What's up, the world? It's your boy Thomas Maverick, and I just came in because I wanted to give my opinion again, throw my opinion into the pot and see how it cooks. So, if you have not been watching, we're playing another game of I predict things that seem obvious. It should be obvious, but somehow when I predict them, I'm being this, that, or the third. So let me say this and say this up front. My criticism of Luka Doncic does not come from me seeing things where there isn't things to be seen. It doesn't come from me pointing out, me trying to nitpick people around LeBron, or people who are white, or people who are European, and this, that, and the third. Though that is a big part of this whole entire discussion. Recently, there's been this whole thing about the world versus USA, which is dumb, right? And they're like, well, if you look at the world, the top 5 players in the league are European players. Like, well, that's subjective. Depends on what you value, right? Because if you're talking about individual players in the league, like saying if they have a one-on-one tournament, Giannis is not winning. I don't think Giannis finishes in the top 5. I don't think Luka Doncic finishes in the top 5. I don't think Jokic finishes in the top. Jokic might. Jokic big. So it's gonna be a hard ass job trying to. If he gets the ball first, you know what I mean. It'd be hard ass thing trying to stop Jokic from scoring on your own. He's too big, and he's too skilled. So Jokic, I don't know about Jokic. Jokic probably still end up in the top 5. If he gets his shots, you know what I mean? Because I think he's a below average defender, but in a one-on-one, I don't know, because if he doesn't get the ball first, then it's gonna be real hard for him to play anybody on the wing, right? Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, you know what I mean? Ja, Anthony Edwards, LeBron, KD, you know, I can't see him, a lot of these Cade Cunningham, a lot of these guys from America I don't know a player from Europe that if they played on the outside, you know what I mean, played perimeter defense with no help. I don't know any European that I think could stay in front of the player that they're guarding. Not one. Luka, laughable. Giannis, okay rim protector, but definitely not a perimeter defender. Jokic, obviously. Shea, obviously. Like I said, I can't. Yeah, it's great that they can. I think this is one of the main things about European players that I think is being missed. Because a lot of people want to focus on their ability to play within systems and their ability to get stats. And that's all fine and dandy. But I think the most important thing is that these European players are terrible defenders. And they're not great one-on-one players. They're not good. They're not good at match. They're not. And I understand it's like, well, that's the problem with AAU. You have, which I agree with. A lot of these players are not learning to play team ball. They're learning to play individual, and so they're learning to be the guy and get the ball. And so a lot of times these guys are getting to the NBA and they're not finding teams that are willing to build their offenses around them. So now they're struggling to find where they fit, and I understand that, but that does not change that they're still better, right? They're still better at what they do. Whereas the European players, I think, were brought up in systems that are heavily predicated on them getting their touches and them being able to distribute from positions that normally don't distribute. Small forward, power forward, center. You know what I mean? Giannis at power forward, because people like to say Giannis is a center, but I don't really see Giannis as a center. He rarely is in the block. He most of the time he plays the ball in front of him, and he's attacking like a power forward. So I see Giannis more as a power forward than I see him as a center. Reasonable minds can disagree, but I think that that he's a power forward. Obviously, Jokic to me is a great passing big man. Is that new? No, but I think what's his name? I don't know his name. Jokic is he has another chapter to the book. When it comes to it, I think that's what he brings. Luka from the small forward position. They play really well. You know what I mean? Because they play, all of them just play it like their point guard, right? Outside of Jokic, who plays and who passes from the paint. Other than that, I mean, Shai is purely 90% of his game is predicated on getting to the foul line. I think that's going to be that's going to be way harder to do when you don't have people to set picks for you, so you can get around and then put people in awkward positions. I think in 1v1, when you're in front of the person and you have to beat them, I think Shai's a great 1v1 player, but he's not that athletic, and he relies heavily on pump faking and getting people in the air. And I think that could work if they were calling fouls in one-on-one, but generally they don't call fouls in one-on-one. So I don't know the situation, but I think Shai's a great player. But I don't think he's going to in the top 5, against the more decorated people in that space. With those players like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Anthony Edwards. A lot of these guys who are both athletic and skilled. And I think therein lies the problem. A lot of these European guys outside of Giannis are skilled, but they're not athletic. So that's why they struggle to play defense, because you can mask a person's limitations on the offensive side because the people are playing off of them, so they can play at their speed. Defense, you're playing at the other person's speed. Now you have to catch up. You have to be able to you have to be quick-footed. You have to be able to switch. You got to be able to get out to the perimeter to guard guards. You have to be able to be strong enough to play in the post and not get bodied in the post. It's a lot that goes into it's way more goes in the defense than the offensive side of the ball. Offensive side, you just kind of play your game and then people play off of you. Defense, you have to play within a system. You have to understand how to switch and all these other things, and understand when you're not supposed to concede a switch, when you are supposed to concede a switch, when you're supposed to go under a pick, when you're supposed to go over it. Like, there's a lot of things that go into playing defense, and I think it's way more of a mental aspect to the game on the defensive side, meaning you have to think more on the defensive side when you're not athletic than you have to do on the offensive side when you're not athletic. And I think that's why a lot of these European players are falling by the wayside, and that's what gets on my last nerve. I hate the narrative that, the European players are taking over. It's like, no, they're not. They're not. It's like, well, think about it. I'm like, yeah, because you guys are making an argument that is erroneous on its face. You're saying a guy from Greece, a guy from Lithuania, a guy from Serbia. These are not countries that are together. They're different countries. So that's one person from Greece, one person from Greece by way of Africa, one from Lithuania, and one from Serbia. Or wherever Luka's from. I think Luka's from Lithuania, but I don't know. and a couple from Canada. Canada might have an argument that they produce some pretty good talent. That's a whole country, and you might have 4 or 5 great prospects. I mean, that's saying a lot. That because another country can produce 4 or 5, okay, not great, outside of maybe Shea. There's no great in the bunch, right? They got one MVP, who was, and I guess that's it. I don't know. Maybe Steve Nash came from Canada. I'm not sure if Steve Nash came from Canada or not. But you got Steve Nash from years ago, and then you got Shea. So to me, I don't. Great for Toronto. I'm happy for Canada that they're producing athletes. But come on, man. That's like comparing. You know what I mean? Like when I grew up, I used to always get annoyed, right? People would always compare boxing to UFC, and it would drive me nuts. It was like boxing is getting swallowed by the UFC. I'm like, could you imagine in their prime if you had Floyd, Manny, Ricky Hatton, Oscar De La Hoya, just pick anybody from the era, right? And they all were on one card. Do you think the UFC would beat that card? Not in a million years. So I think it's very, very disingenuous to say UFC is more popular when their labor is cheaper. So therefore, they're allowed to put on matches in which their top stars are competing. When 4 or 5 of their top stars are competing on one card. And you saw how that worked out for them. It didn't work. It's really hard to build stars in the UFC. Why? Because it's hard for them to get on win streaks. Because they're constantly forcing people before they're ready to fight people that are more experienced than them, that have more talent. I mean, at this point, I don't really understand. When the fighters are allowed, they know their bodies and they know their fighting styles better than the players do. So I can never, than Dana does. So Dana will just throw people in fights, whether it's a good fight or at all. A lot of times it's short notice. These people have no time. You're supposed to have at least 6 weeks. He will sometimes give these people these fights 3 weeks after somebody drops out, and they got like 3 weeks for the fight. So it's not really, and these guys get paid peanuts. So it's hard for them to be able to say no to it, because if they say no, then Dana will hold it against them. And because he holds so much power, they basically have to agree, because if they don't agree, he's going to try to vindictively get back at them, because he's a very, very petty and small-minded person. If you listen to a lot of the arguments, these people with his bigger stars, is because they get to a point where they're like, bro, I don't need you anymore, and you're still trying to run the same game you were running when I needed you, when your name was bigger than mine, where you're trying to put me in fights that are not good for me. You're not giving me enough time to prepare for these fights, and you're trying to switch my opponents 3 weeks before the fight, and then think I'm supposed to just say okay to him. He tried to do that. Him and John Jones fell out. He loved John Jones. And him and John Jones fell out because the guy, I don't know if it was Silva or one of the people, they tapped out and said they got an injury. He tried to put Chael Sonnen into a fight with John Jones like 2 or 3 weeks before their bout. John Jones was like, no, I'm not going to fight this man. Fight this man who's a capable submission guy. Capable grapple guy whose game is largely predicated on one opportunity. I have not prepared my mind. I have not prepared myself to go into a fight with a guy, because I've been preparing myself to strike for the last 6 weeks. And now you're going to switch it into this guy who is more of a grappler. Now I got to switch my whole game plan, and you're trying to make me do it in 3 weeks. Why? Because Dana is intentionally trying to make it. He wanted Chael to win that fight. Dana White is not a racist. I don't believe Dana White is a racist, but I do think that he likes white fighters. That doesn't make him racist. No more than a black guy who likes to see black people, who roots for the black guy in fights. Most black people do. When they see a black guy and a white guy, they root for the black guy. White guy sees the white guy and the black guy, he roots for the white guy. It's just kind of like the home team is what you do. It doesn't make you racist. It just means that that's who you root for, because that's who you're aligned with at times. It's only when you start to me, it becomes racist when you start to do things, in my opinion, that are now systematic. You're starting to do things in which you're wielding power to try to make what you want to be the truth, even though you know you're fixing things. You're still trying to portray it as if it's a natural and genuine thing, and I hate that. That's what I hate. But I think Dana favors he wants to believe the white fighters are better, so he tends to do things to try to basically bias confirmation, where he just tries to confirm what he already believes. And so he tries to do these things. He tried to do the same thing with Ngannou. He tried to do the same thing with Silva, where he tries to do these things where and it's always with a white fighter, where he tries to slide them in with little to no time for the black fighter to prepare. And he does this often. And a lot of times these fighters are in bad positions, so they have to take it, and they still end up winning. But it does a lot of times. If you don't know, that first fight with that one tall white kid, that was another fight where John Jones was put in at the last minute, and that was almost John Jones' first loss. Because when you're in these positions, and they tend to do this, where Dana will do this, he'll hold out and then just slide these fighters in. But that's neither here nor there. The point I'm trying to say is that the UFC boxing thing is kind of like the same thing with this USA European thing. You're taking everybody in the world and you're treating them as if they're coming from one country. Let's first start off by saying, stop saying European. Canada is not European. They're North American. Okay, that they don't count as European. Okay, so that's first. So when you take that out of context, you want to say Joe, who grew up in the States, learned to play basketball in the States. He did not learn to play basketball in Europe. So that's already not making any. You can't call Joel Embiid a European player. He is not. He is an American player. That leaves Giannis from 10 years ago, Luka Doncic, and Jokic from 10 years ago. So I don't really see where these European players are taking over. Then you say Wembyama. That's it. 4. Every year there is a new American player who comes in and tears the league up. It is not out of the ordinary, so people don't care. It's not out of the ordinary. You see a guy from America come in and become a superstar. It's not uncommon to see a Ja, an Anthony Morant, a Zion Williams. You know what I mean? I haven't really kept up with the newer, rookies or whatever. But Cade Cunningham and a lot of these other guys, it's not odd to see them come in and dominate, because that's America's known for that. What I get mad at is this narrative that keeps trying to get pushed, as if people are not paying attention to the larger scope. I'm happy that the world is starting to play basketball. I'm happy that you have guys like Wembyama. I'm happy that we have guys, that Canada is starting to really embrace this basketball culture, and they're starting in America, and they're starting to build talent. I like that. I love the Olympics when I know I'm going to see good basketball, and these teams are going to give USA their best foot forward, and they're going to show USA that, look, y'all the best. We're not going to deny that, but our level of competition ain't that much lower than y'all, and we're coming. And I like that, and I love that, but that's not the same thing. you playing with a team. Luka plays with his World Cup / Olympic team almost every offseason. These guys are playing with each other all the time. The USA team is thrown together in a couple of days. That it's not the same thing. You're forcing a bunch of guys again who are used to being the main players in their offenses. They're used to getting the ball and playing with the ball and playing and everything being facilitated to work around them. Now they have so many players like that on the team that now they have to find a way to make these all these odd pieces fit to where they can actually play as a team, because you can't not put a guy like Jason Tatum on the team, Jaylen Brown on the team, because if you don't put them on the team, people are going to ask why they're not on the team. So you have to put them on the team. If you don't, there's going to be this big whataboutism when it comes to why you brought him and you brought this one and you did, right? So now you have these huge things, right? Like let's take next Olympics, right? A guy like Jalen Brunson, amazing point guard for his team. Do you put him on the USA team? It's gonna be hard because Jalen Brunson plays with the ball. He needs to play with the ball. It's going to be real hard to just drop him on Team USA and think he's going to be effective with way less touches. He's going to be way less effective. So then it's the question that begs is he still the same player if he's not getting the same amount of touches? Right? Look at Halliburton. Great player, but he was reduced to basically a wing shooter when he played with Team USA. So he got to the point where he stopped playing because they couldn't use him. Jason Tatum, the same thing. He needs the ball. He's not a good off-the-ball player, so how does he play within a system? He can't. Right? When you have KD, Steph, and LeBron on the court, you want LeBron running a point. And you got KD and Steph playing off of him. Anthony Edwards in there, who's a big physical, great defender, who can play both ways, and you need a center, a big guy who can play in the middle, and Joel Embiid and Anthony Davis. Like, you need those players. You don't need a guy like Jalen Brunson. You already got guys who are bigger and faster and can play off the ball, who can run the point. So the point I'm trying to stress is that I don't really understand the point in trying to act like the World Cup / Olympics somehow are a good barometer for how the culture of the level of basketball played in every country. No, these are guys who play with each other all the time. They're playing year round. USA is thrown together in a couple of days, and you're trying to get all these odd pieces to fit in a couple of days, and then you're pushing them out in international competition and acting as if they're supposed to be able to be with teams who are used to playing off of each other. They know what type of defense they're playing. They know how to play off of each other because they've all been in these roles for years. Whereas the USA people have to learn to play with it. They have to learn to play off the ball when they're used to having it. They have to learn to switch certain players and who they can switch onto and who they can't switch onto. There's different things that go into basketball other than just throwing a bunch of players together and saying you have the best. Well, they have the best individual players. That does not mean that throwing all those best individual players are going to give you the best team. And so it's even remarkable that these guys are thrown together in 3 games and in a couple games, and because of the sheer talent on the team, they're just going out and annihilating teams anyways. It goes to show you the difference in the levels of basketball. But I think people just get misled by the narratives that international players are starting to take over. It's like, bro, please, they're not. They're not taking over. They're being represented, which is a good thing. them being represented is not the same thing as them being taking over. Well, all the top players are from overseas. It's like 4 players are from overseas. Out of the top 100 players, you would say less than 10% of them are from overseas. I really wouldn't call that taking over. You know what I mean? It's like when a black person becomes a billionaire, all of a sudden we're acting like black people are coming up. It's like, yeah, there's like one black billionaire to like 300 white billionaires. I don't really quantify that the same as being a barometer over black people's success. It's the same thing about when you're talking about it from the standpoint of the elite. It's like, yes, there are some really good international players. Wembanyama, I would go so far as to say in a year or two will be the best player in the NBA, bar none. If he's not already, the best player in the NBA, but that is rare. I didn't believe that Jokic was the best player in the NBA, because I can't believe you're the best player in the NBA when you can't play defense. Never believed Luka was there. Giannis at one point, I could see why people believe that, but again, he was inefficient. He couldn't shoot. Wemby is not that. There's no knock on him. Like, there's nothing Wemby can't do. He can go out the perimeter. He can go out the post. He can go out the. He can shoot from mid range. He can shoot from 3. He can play off the ball. He can pass. Wemby might be, when it's all said and done, the best basketball player to ever play the game. Ever. Bar nobody. Skill-wise, you're talking about a guy that there is nothing Wembanyama can't do. There is nothing. And I was not a person who kind of drunk Kool-Aid with Wemby. I was like, I got to see him. You know what I mean? It's completely different to see that on an international game than to see it, against the best of the best. But to me, all it showed is, this guy's a problem. The problem he had in Europe is that he did not have the players around him to be able to be able to compliment him well enough for him to do the things he does. But now he's on it. He's playing with other guys who are as good as he is, and it's only made him better. Like, you can't, like, Wemby can go wherever he wants, and he has somebody who can get him the ball in that spot. That is dangerous when you got the skill set that Wembanyama has. That man say, I want to go stand. I want the ball over here on the wing. There's somebody who can get him the ball on the wing. Okay, now I'm gonna go in the post. Oh, there's somebody who can get him in the post. All he has to do, he's like, okay, I want 5 assists. He has players that can finish. He has guys who can shoot. So it's to me, it's like, wow. That having somebody like you fat, you know what I mean, on who you're passing to now you're passing to De'Aaron Fox and all these other players. It's like, Vashawn. It's like, the European thing was actually holding him back, but not in the way that I thought. I thought he looked better because he was playing with the European players. When the truth of the matter is, he's just purely he was being held back by playing with those players because they couldn't play at his level. And now he's with players who could play at his level, and he might possibly, when it's all said and done, if Wemby doesn't get injured, because it's real hard with big men, if Wemby doesn't get injured, if he can stay healthy, which he has yet to show he can do, because he's already, same thing with Porzingis and these very tall and skinny guys. If they don't, their bodies are just not made to be bumped and hit and you know what I mean, like that. And I think he's not. I think Wemby. I think he's not even eligible to be like all NBA because he's missed so many games this year. So I think that definitely will hold him back. But aside from the fact that he has to get bigger. He has to get some meat on his bone because they're gonna hit him. And when you're in when you're banging like Wemby does, it's gonna be real hard for you to try to overcome that. But he is a great player, and I think he will find a way. But if he does, and he doesn't get injured, we might be looking at the greatest basketball player to ever play the game. To me, it's like combining Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kevin Durant, LeBron, with his IQ, Kevin Durant with his versatility, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with his sheer size and dominant length. Yeah, it's just, I mean, just pick your poison with that guy. You know what I mean? He can pass. He can. I mean, to me, that's what it's like. He's like a hybrid of those three players. And I can't see anybody who's able to, you know, match him. You know what I mean? And he's still kind of a beast. You know what I mean? He doesn't shrink. He doesn't shrink under the pressure. Like he doesn't shrink. Like he rises to the occasion every time. Like I said, that France game, when they played in that Olympic game, Wemby was giving it to him. You know what I mean? Wemby was giving it to everybody, and I think having a player like that was why. We blew them out the first time we played them, but we actually didn't play them in the preliminary, so no, we didn't actually blow them out. But the point is, we blew out a lot of teams that they barely beat. But the point I'm trying to say is that Wemby's a beast. So, you know what I mean? But Wemby does not mean international players are taking over. It just means Wembanyama is a great player. That's it. End of story. He's a great player. He's always been a great player. And nobody ever said that international players are not good. You can't have a good international player. But that's a far cry from saying a player that the international players are dominating. It's like, no, they're not. They're being represented. And why can't we just say that these players are international players are being represented more frequently, in the NBA levels, showing that great talent can come from overseas. No, we have to put them in competition with the USA, which I think is dumb, because then you get people who won't fully back them because you're making a narrative that they're trying to take over our sport, which I think is always stupid. But I think the media is always toxic. The media never does shit that helps anything. They're always there just trying to stoke controversy so that they can stoke the controversy and cause more problems. They sell their soul to me. They realize and they're bought into this lie that controversy sells, as if genuineness doesn't sell as well. If you have a genuine good story about somebody, that sells just as well as the bad one. But they'll never take the good one. They always take the bad one, because the bad one is to me, is something they do because they're jealous. They're jealous of these athletes. They're jealous of these stars. So they try to find a negative spin on everything. So instead of just saying, hey, the international players are good, they want to try to, I think it's their idea to try to pit the international players against the USA-born players. And I think it's dumb. I don't think it does a service to the USA players, and I don't think it does a service to the international players. It's just purely there to start problems. And I think we need to quit this narrative that these media channels do to garner hate attention, where people flock to them because they don't like what they say. But regardless, and specifically when we're talking about somebody like Brandon Jennings, you got to remember Brandon Jennings had a lot of success in the international market. And so when the situation got turned around and he came back to the NBA, he had less success, and I think he only had one or two really good seasons in the NBA. Other than that, as far as I know, he struggled, and then he was out of the NBA. So I think guys like whatever his name is, Rashad McCants, I think they say those things because it makes them feel better about failing in the NBA. because then they can say, well, I failed in the NBA, but I was one of the better players in Europe, so therefore I was one of the better players in Europe, so therefore I must be a great player. I just wasn't given the opportunity in the NBA that I was given in Europe, even though the competition in Europe is the same. So I think that's the problem. You have a bunch of guys who are not complimenting European players. They want to compliment themselves, and they need the fire of FIBA and all these other international basketball leagues being on a higher plane. But either way, please comment. Let me know what y'all think. If you're not subscribed, what we doing, subscribe. All right, y'all. Peace.